Welcome to the Laughter Clinic podcast with comedian and suicidologist Mark McConville, bringing you practical, evidence-based self-care strategies, the latest research in mental health, along with conversations that inspire, educate, and entertain. This is the Laughter Clinic podcast with your host, Mark McConville.
Welcome back to the Laughter Clinic podcast, my friends. No matter where you are listening in the world, I hope that you are healthier and happy and everything is good in your world. And as always, really appreciate your time in tuning in. And today we have a fantastic guest, Dane Hiser, who... I tell you what, we've got so much to chat about. Here's a guy, 20 years of experience working in the fundraising sector. He's ran successful comedy clubs in Sydney for over 6 years and has a wealth of lived experience when it comes to not only, helping care for a family member with a rare genetic disorder. We're obviously talking about Dane's brother, Trent, who sadly passed away recently. But you've also got lived experience of dealing with your own mental health challenges as well. So, Dane, welcome to the Laughter Clinic podcast, mate. I'm so glad that we've been able to finally organise a time to catch up. How are you?
I'm great, mate. Thank you. Really good to be here. Looking forward to this.
So, mate, look, before we kick off, I just want to say I'm terribly sorry for yours and your family's loss of Trent recently. I know that it's been a long journey for you guys as a family, so I really appreciate the fact that you're still, keen to come on and have a chat.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's actually been bittersweet in many ways. We remember the Trent he was, happy, fun, larrikin, could work the room thoroughly and get whatever he wanted out of it. He always had a way of getting his message through, he had a genetic thing. But in the long run, it took the love of family, my parents in particular, to get him through to where he did. And yeah, that's the way life goes. But he lived a full life, and I'm so grateful for that. That's probably about it for now.
Yeah. Well, mate, we start all our conversations on the podcast by unpacking the saying, laughter is the best medicine. So here's a saying that's been around for over 3,000 years, and now we have the luxury of modern day research supporting not only the physical benefits of laughter, but the psychological benefits of using your sense of humour as a coping mechanism to help you deal with life's challenges, and also the social health benefits of coming together and sharing laughter with others. So, mate, when you hear the saying laughter is the best medicine, what does that conjure up for you?
Healing. The bright side of life, and the fact that, like, it's kind of what I love about Australia is that there's we've got a bit of a history of larrikinism and not taking things too seriously, and we do take things seriously. I think that's why mental health is such a big issue. People focus inward a lot, like I did, and think, oh, woe is me, the world. But if you spin it around, you turn to each other, you can make nothing makes you laugh more than your mates. And you laugh at dark times. I work in the charity sector, and I have people I know work in the front lines and stuff. And you can make some, you can make blue jokes, you can make light jokes, you can make dad jokes, you can make puns, and just turns the day around. Bring a smile to the face. Uncontrollable laughter is great. Part of the reason for getting into comedy, I always got it come off my dad. Dad was always the ultimate, like, I guess, king of sarcasm, really, you would say. Yeah. He always got through with his mouth, basically. Got in trouble sometimes with his mouth in school and stuff, and you can sometimes say not quite the right thing.
Right.
So you have to apply a filter at times.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's really the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I love the fact that, like you said, coming together with your mates and helping each other through tough times through laughing and stuff. It's so incredibly important, that bonding and that connection. So, over the journey, we'll just, I don't know if you're up for talking about Trent and how that journey has been for your family over the years, because it was quite a rare, I'd never actually heard of that condition until you'd mentioned it. So Are you up for educating our listeners on what it was that he actually had?
Yeah, I can a little bit. I mean, it's obviously still pretty fresh, but yes, I can. So he was born with a rare genetic condition called Prader-Willi. And what Prader-Willi is, it boosts your appetite and metabolism and causes chronic relentless hunger. So he's always hungry. So if you imagine how hungry you get, and when you're hungry, you're stressed, you're anxious, all that, and you just want to get some food. You just want to get something to ease the hole or whatever it might be. You had that 24/7. You're also mixing with that intellectual and physical disability. And essentially the mind of maybe like a 5 to 8 year old permanently growing through an adult body. When he was born with the issues he had, he was in hospital for 3 months from his day of birth. And at one point throughout his stay there, parents were asked to consider getting a priest in for last rites.
Really?
And that's how close that got. But
Wow.
they got him out. They got him healthy enough. They got him out. And Trent never returned to hospital till a day or two before he passed a few weeks ago, and lasted 49 years. Now, the average lifespan for someone with Prader-Willi is 25 to 30.
Wow, that's incredible. That is
So
incredible.
that's incredible. The only reason I'm okay to talk about this, I think, is that it just shines light on the power of family, on the power of love, and the power of mucking down and getting it done when you need to. And another thing, like if you don't know Prader-Willi, the things we had to do at home, so they were normal. They were normal to us because that's just what our life was. But lock
Mm.
the fridge and pantry every day, mum rigorously controlling, calories in food, getting Trent on the treadmill every day to do at least 5 kilometers a day. No one does that. Like
Yeah,
that's a
right.
hard ask for anybody to do. But by doing that and keeping that routine in play, um, mum and dad were able to keep him around for as long as he did. And also to, if you have a child and you have a child in a growing body, part of that is also tantrums. He had tantrums. And when a 8 year old has tantrums, okay. But when like a 47-year-old has tantrums and they've got more power and more adult and more muscle and everything and weight to them, then that can be quite confronting and quite hard. So we always had to manage everything, like anywhere we went, anything we did, just to make sure that Trent was factored in and that there was safety there and that and that we can kind of get that little bit done. So I guess it was kind of in a weird way, any like family function or something was kind of like, you're planning a visit from the president. You have to get him in safely, get him out safely.
Yep.
And it's really that get him out bit because if he's like not done there or he's got some issue with it, then he'll chuck a tantrum and will be a trouble to get home, and there's risking getting him home. So I mean, I don't want to go too much into that because I guess that's family, but that's just the kind of resilience applied to keeping him going and keeping him around. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, he lost faith in his body, in himself, and didn't move around much. It was hard to get on the treadmill and do because he lost faith in his legs after a fall, like a little while ago, and then it just kind of had that descent. But at the end of the day, we were able to get a blood report from Trent because we can never get him fully like into doctors. He hated needles. He wouldn't kind of sit in a chair. He was afraid of hospitals and doctors and dying, and he just wouldn't go near all that stuff. So he resisted anything like that. So we could never get a full report till towards when he got a bit weaker in the hospital. We could get it, and we saw from the full report that everything connecting Prader-Willi to a low mortality rate wasn't a factor. Was dealt with completely. So the two main things are diabetes, high diabetes, and heart failure. He had none of that. All his markers, and I don't know the medical stuff, but all the markers he needed to be as fit as he can as someone with what he had were perfect. And
Wow.
at the end of the day, it was a infection, pneumonia, and a seizure to the infection while he was being treated that took him.
Wow.
And as sad as that is, the light of that is that how amazing is that? Like to keep
Well,
him around for that long against all odds. And also, I must point out, it's not just up to mum and dad or any of us. It's Trent.
yeah.
Trent was a fighter,
Yeah.
and he was full of life. He was full of joy. He was, like I said, he could work anyone in the room. He was cunning. He was clever. He could do a jigsaw puzzle like no one else. He could read a TV guide, even if he didn't couldn't read every word or understand it. He could work out what was on, what he needed to ask. He always found a way to get a piece of information he needed or to get something through best he could, and using every facility he had. When you have that limit in communication, he used everything to connect to somebody, to kind of to have that one-on-one time, have that connection, be able to con them every now and then for food or presents or all those kinds of things that Trent would, like a kid would. And he was resilient.
Yeah.
And that resilience rubs off on every one of us.
Yeah.
So it would not have been possible to flourish and shine if it weren't for mum primarily and dad and the whole family.
Well,
So
I know that
yeah,
you've referred to your mum in an email that when we've been back and forth as your mum's the superhero of the family, and your dad with his stoicism. Like, I mean, seriously, it's a big ask on any family, isn't it, to go through something like that? But that bond, what are they coming up to their 50-year wedding anniversary? Did I remember?
yeah, it was 50 this year in June.
Wow,
Yep.
that's
Yep,
incredible.
amazing, absolutely amazing that entire life, that entire union was full with Trent and with us. But again, like I think that, like I said, in the last year or year and a half or so before what happened recently, he wasn't his normal self. He was down on himself. He was anxious. He was paranoid. He was scared. He was just like that joy, happy-go-lucky Trent that was there wasn't there anymore, and he was just too worried about himself, and needed mum at home and dad all the time. Became fully dependent. He was pretty independent previously, but fully dependent on all things he didn't need, previously to losing faith in his body and himself. And yeah, so he wasn't in a good place in that respect either. And it's prompted me to think and ask the question: what do you do? How do you treat mental health for someone who is intellectually impaired?
Mm,
You
mm,
can't really do traditional therapy, you can't do meditation or any of those kinds of things, at least not in the way I know.
mm,
And so how can you ease someone in a state like that? I just don't know.
mm. And how have you
So
how
yeah.
have you how have your folks managed to look after themselves like over this journey?
Um pretty well. I mean, mum is as committed as they come,
Mm,
and she did when they had Trent. Obviously, she was still working for a bit, and then came a time where she had to become a stay-at-home mum. And mum just knuckles down and gets it done.
mm,
I used to think when mum, oh, the stress is, why is she so stressed? But at the end of the day, she had a lot on, a lot to do, a lot to take care of, and a lot to get through. And mum was like, is one that is hyper vigilant and will focus on something and need to get it done. And it does, stress sometimes comes out as a result of that, but it's just pure love, really, is what's hiding underneath.
yeah.
Well, not hiding, it's pretty clear, but still what driving it. And dad is that calm in the storm. Dad is like, he worked in HR, he knows how to deal with people person. He keeps fit, he still does triathletes at the 70, I don't want to get this wrong, 77, 67, 68 he is now. And he's still going strong, and still doing all that. And mum's strong as well. She gets on the treadmill every day too and does like at least 6K a day.
Wow.
So like she's like going hard. They're both very committed to them, well, not committed to themselves, but committed to like being the best they can for us and for Trent. And yeah, it's pretty miraculous how it's all come through. And as sad and devastating and shocking as the whole thing has been, because it did happen quick, there's light there. Trent had a really good 49 years, last year and a bit, maybe not as much, but he had a good time. And we are filled with nothing but love and joy. And just like looking at the photos and seeing the Trent we knew and seeing the Trent, and they got 100 people into the room at our celebration last Thursday out in Penrith. He's like a local celebrity. Trent was a brand.
Yeah.
Trent was like a brand for being yourself, being unapologetic, for just not really worrying too much and just charging forward, making friends, making them laugh, saying stuff that sometimes people didn't understand or stuff that was just weird or,
Mm.
just being him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's a one in a kind and we'll miss him deeply, but it's taught us a lot.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I bet it has. And, it must have been challenging for yourself as well, like aside from watching your brother go through this, but, having your own mental health challenges as well over the years, an early, well, I was going to say an early diagnosis with anxiety and depression, but, I suppose being diagnosed for that in your 20s isn't classified as early these days, I suppose, is it? Because we've got kids being diagnosed with it. But how did all that come about for you in your early 20s?
Well, I mean, I was reflecting on that age, and you look at your 20s versus your 40s. And I think for me, I had that typical thing. In my 20s, you get out of school, you get out of uni, your friends from those areas start to kind of drift off, they partner up, they get married, they have kids, they travel the world, they get full-time jobs, and they start living quote unquote adult life, and they'll go off in another direction. And I was kind of not really there. I was still kind of like, doing uni stuff, doing a little bit of retail work, and not quite knowing who I was, and not quite able to connect with, I guess, with ladies or girls or whatever. And I was still with my parents, which is fine at that age, and I just didn't really know where I fit in the world. And then I'm always very introspective and always a bit of a sensitive flower, particularly as a kid, and always kind of like, I guess, looked inward and not worried about me, but worried about my projection of myself on the outside world. So my focus was always please people. It was
Mm.
always like help, help mum, help dad, help family, help work, help, friends, whatever. And that will be how I will make a difference. Because maybe that's all I can do. Maybe I can't be my own identity, be my own thing, because I don't know what that is. Maybe I'll just go and do that for them, and that will make me happy.
Mm.
Surprise, surprise, that's not the answer. And it took me well beyond those years to even learn that. But yeah, it was really worrying about my place in the world and where I sat, where I was at. And I compare that to as we're to like be in your 40s, you have that same kind of place too, that early 40s where your most recent career gigs or whatever, they drift away, and the friends or connections from those times, they kind of drift a little bit, or communication is different. And you kind of also have to like reboot yourself a little bit there. I know I did, and in this current age, it's so hard to make friends. I say particularly as a guy, but I know like female friends that have issues too. When you're an adult, for like a better word again, I'm 47 now, and how do you connect? How do you connect in a world that is more disconnected than it has ever been, like in a very long time?
Mm.
It's post-COVID, it's post, cost of living, it's hybrid work, it's more people being online, the overtake of technology. I mean, even this is the closest we're going to get for a little while because we live a bit remote, a bit distant, and this is it. And this is fine, but quite often it's a text or a phone call or a quick, yep, okay, I'm all right, see you later. And we just don't know how to connect with each other anymore. And
Mm.
we get too complacent.
Mm.
I'm number one for sabotaging myself. Don't know about you, Mark, but I love nothing more than a cancellation. Oh, man. Oh, Mark, I cannot tell you. If a plan is cancelled, I go, oh. And it's normally a plan. It's normally something I'm looking forward to. It's normally catching up with a friend I want to catch up with. But I go, oh, thank goodness. I was so worried about that, or I can't be bothered with that.
Do you
Now
reckon
time
that?
you
Do you
spend
reckon that's?
home on your own.
You reckon that's a bit OCD in there?
It's OCD, but I think it's also very common.
Yeah.
I think these days that I mean, I think particularly COVID, I think COVID forced us into isolation,
Yeah.
and we learnt about the, I guess, perks of isolation. You can spend more time with the family, with whoever you live with. If you did, I had a split experience on that. And you can, and you can also take up hobbies and sourdough starters or whatever the hell you want to do and all that stuff and pick, oh, this is pretty cool. Hang out and hybrid working. I can still work like I did. I can get stuff done, but I can, mix up with family and house stuff, and I can jump on later at 10 o'clock, do a little bit if I had to have a longer lunch today or whatever. And just people get used to their own bubble, their own place. And then entertainment suffers, live events and concerts and comedy suffers. And people suffer because you get in a little bit of a safety bubble. And it's
Mm.
that safety, comfort bubble. And yeah, some people get past that and can go through that. But I think that's really isolated the world. And I think our preference to do this, I think in the past, if we want to arrange something, I would try to do a flight. I'm in town here, you're in town then. Let's meet there. Let's meet face to face. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
But now it's not, this is the most convenient, switch it on, let's do it. I think that's why podcasts are as big as they are.
Yeah. Well,
Traditional entertainment, live TV's gone because streaming's taken over. So now you whack a computer out, you sit in front of you, you chat to a mate, and that's the way of connection now.
yeah. Well, the beauty about it is, like, as hard as what it is to get our head around the fact that, we've got this technology that enables us to stay connected to people on the other side of the planet at the same time as we've got this loneliness epidemic happening around the world. The beautiful thing about it is, and this is what I talk about in the mental health presentations when we're talking about who in your life shares your sense of humour and foster those relationships and lean into those relationships. And that is one of the beauties about this type of technology that, like I've got a few mates of mine that are spread around the country and they're my guys. No matter how I'm feeling, if I chat to one of them, they'll have me laughing in minutes, and that's the thing is we're in a time where you can, do a call like this, a video call for someone, a friend that's on the other side of the planet and still have that sense of connection, So it's, COVID really changed the playing field in a lot of ways when it came to connecting with your loved ones, didn't it?
Yeah, it definitely did. And I think that's one of the things that I guess came to the fore during COVID with me is that my thing was I never wanted to be the bad guy. I never wanted to be looked down on or like disappointed. I guess I never wanted to disappoint people. And that's kind of what led in my 20s to that, OCD, anxiety, depression, all that. I always thought that I was being judged and I wasn't happy and I wasn't pleasing people. It was less about worrying about being teased or whatever, and more about I wasn't pleasing people.
Mm,
As a chronic people pleaser, the obvious thing is you want to please people.
mm,
And people mean anyone outside of you. And that idea of the real you, whether you know you're covering it or not, you cover it, you shut it down because you're worried about the perception other people have of you. That true you isn't about you going, hey, I'm going to be me and talk about what I like and be honest. I've been honest and outward all my life, and that has sometimes helped and not helped. What it's about is getting rid of that filter that has you worried about the projection of what you're thinking of me right now and just worrying about how I'm communicating.
yeah.
Am I getting my message through? Am I being clear? Sometimes I'm not. Am I doing that? In comedy, the most safe place I ever feel is on stage when the mic is on and the crowd is there.
Mm.
Because it's the ultimate exercise in mindfulness.
Oh,
My
yeah.
only job is to engage. And yes, that means laugh, that means applause, but that means engage, hook in.
Yeah.
So I'm only looking either out into the darkness or in a couple of rows or whatever, and that's my job. That's my place.
Mm.
And that's where I don't worry about anything in my body. I don't worry about any anxiety, any compulsion, or anything. I just hook in to the job I'm there to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I've decided I want to do more of this, more engaging conversation, stage, whatever it is, hooking with people and converse, open dialogue, have conversations, make people laugh, bring the world together, even if it is over a podcast and a Zoom.
Mm.
Just really unite people with it because I think the number one people think is that they're always alone and they're not. You get bitter when your friends kind of disappear or they go off or your work crew disappear from a previous job and you go, is it me? What's going on? Blah, blah. No, people move on
Mm.
and they're less worried about that moving on than you are.
Yeah. Yep.
know?
Yeah, that's right.
If a friend drifts away, it's not because they hate you or because they're sick of you or whatever, depending on what you've done, but it's
Well,
not because of
well,
that.
life happens. Life happens for all of
Yeah.
us, and it takes us. We go through seasons in life, in
Yeah.
relation to the people that are in our lives as well.
Yeah.
So that time in your 20s, you said on the phone one time when we were chatting about the fact that they put you on some pretty hefty medication back then, didn't they, Dane? So
Yeah, they
what led
did.
to that? Was it risperidone? Was it?
Risperidone, yeah. So
Yeah.
the things I developed in my 20s were anxiety, OCD, and depression. Now, the OCD and the anxiety were the main things. And what that caused for me, I can't even remember how far back it started, but I think it started in my mid to late teens, I think, from memory. I started developing a twitch, a compulsion. Now, it's a twitch that for some people I've known for 10 years or more, no one's ever known or noticed because it's not a spasm, it's not an involuntary movement. It's a message from my brain that's strong and compulsive, telling my body in some way to move. If I'm feeling some discomfort in my hand, I might do that with my finger or out my head or whatever, twitch around like that. And I've always it's unsettling. It's like I'm not comfortable in my own body, and I've always been uncomfortable in that because I have always looked inwards and felt inwards. I felt about me, and felt about how I'm feeling, how I'm being seen by the world. And that really drove me to like just being anxious and paranoid about it all. Plus, friends going off, getting married, life moving on for everyone else other than what it seemed, other than me.
Mm.
And then that leads down a rabbit hole of, anger at yourself, self-loathing, just not feeling right, emotional, all these things. So I saw a few professionals. I got onto a medication called risperidone, which was one of the harsher ones. There were some tests on other ones. I can't remember what they were, but the doctor did run me through some more, and onto risperidone. And then for the next 20 years or so, things were okay. It was pretty like subdued. I always had those compulsions. So at the end of every day, I'm always exhausted because I would spend the day tightening my body to the point where I don't show whatever I'm feeling around it. Or if I'm at home and I feel a bit kind of like freer, I would move and submit to the twitches. But both of those would cause me pain, body pain at the end of the day.
Right.
So the medication I was on subdued that. It subdued the worry, it subdued the anxiety. But let me make this clear, and anyone who's been on any of those meds, it only subdues. It doesn't stop. It doesn't
Yeah.
get rid of.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with a lot of antidepressants and that type of medication. Like I spent 15 years on a variety of antidepressants myself in my younger years, and I'd always explain it in a way that yes, they take away the lows, but they can also take away the highs and put you in some type of emotional neutrality. I used to refer to it as,
Yeah.
and and the thing is that, amazing. It's amazing how many times when I'm talking to men, especially, when I'm traveling around rural Australia, there's still a big stigma attached to being on antidepressants or any of that type of medication. And I'm forever telling people just because you're on it just doesn't mean that you're going to be on it for life. And they serve their purpose. While there are a whole heap of non-clinical interventions that you can do for your mental health, sometimes being on the medication for a period to help you get through a certain phase in a certain season, they definitely serve their purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think that myself when it was kind of all, sorry, just my chair here. I used to think that myself when it was all kind of like smoothish sailing and I was doing okay. But then like in my early 40s, I think it was 40, 41, very shit 40th birthday present, by the way, I got a limp. So I started developing a really bad limp in my left leg, and I wasn't sure what it was. I spent months going to physios, trying different things, seeing different doctors, seeing what happened. And then over a period of time, I did the physio for 8 months. That led to nothing. And then one day, I was recommended to go see a sports physician at Moore Park. And that's the only time I've been recommended to do something with the word sports in the name.
So you're not a
I
sporty
was not,
guy at all.
sorry, I was not and still not a sporty guy. I
What
walk and
do
I
you,
walk pretty well,
are
don't
you a
brag.
supporter though? Are you a supporter of sport in some way? Do you have a team?
I don't believe in fitness and physical in any level at all, Mark. What are you talking about? Look at me. You can do nothing and have this great physique. No,
Right,
look,
so you're not a Greater Western Sydney guy then, or a Sydney Swan supporter then.
hey, well, no, but I'll have to say this. I live out. I live in Sydney. I live out my parents and family in Penrith, so I support the NRL wholly.
Yeah.
I support it as a grade. I support it as the philosophy. All those teams are great. Everyone is great. Now, look, obviously there's a place for sport, and I do embrace more fitness, and I'll kind of talk about in a bit with kind of what comes next in the story and what I had to do. Like physical fitness and health is really important. And I swam as a kid. Actually, I was in the Penrith RSL swimming club. We did it every Wednesday night at the Penrith pools. And so yeah, all that sport's okay. It has its place, but I'm not built for it. But anyway, I got recommended to see this lady at Moore Park, and she almost straight away said, "Look, I don't think what you're dealing with is muscular or skeletal. I think it's neurological." So she sent me to a guy in Bondi, and I went and saw him. And within 5 minutes of being in that room, he knew what it was, and he diagnosed it as dystonia. Now, what dystonia is the involuntary twisting and contraction of the muscles. It's a neurological disease. And what it was doing was it was forcing my leg to spin out when I walked. I was walking like a cowboy, but not a cool one. Not a John Wayne, big hat or whatever, not a cool cowboy, spinning my leg out. And I wasn't noticing it. I walked a lot, I still walk a lot, but I was walking the wrong way. And when you walk the wrong way, you do damage to your body. And then that was giving me the bursitis, which people thought it was, or what doctor thought she could see. And yeah, so I was put on a medication called Matapar, and that is, I learnt in the Parkinson's family, which wasn't a great word to hear. But the guy said, "Won't, it's not like that. It's just kind of similar family." Okay, fine. And then I was on that for a bit, and they added Artane, which is kind of like a complement to Matapar, and they kind of work together. And then after about 8 months or so, it wasn't quite doing the job that the neuro guy wanted. So he sent me to a movement disorder panel at Westmead Hospital. It was about 8:30, 9 a.m. in the morning. I got in there, I went into a conference room. I walked in, there was one chair in the middle, a screen up on the wall, and 12 chairs just in a little semicircle. I walked in and thought, well, this is a weird gig. See how this goes. And 12 movement disorder specialists walked into the room, walked perfectly into the room. If any of them were wonky, they'd be against their brand. And they walked into the room and they sat down, and I sat in the chair, and the doctor was from Bondi. So he couldn't be stuffed, the stuff going out to Westmead. Why would you? And it was during COVID times too, so it was pretty full on. But anyway, he gave him the deal about my history, about why I was there, all the issues, all that stuff. And we couldn't find a genetic link at that time either. So he was just explaining my condition. They were asking me to walk around, do some movements and stuff. And when it took me about 3 minutes just to take my shoes off to show them I could move, they thought, well, maybe there is something not quite right with the maze moving here. There is an issue. So I went out and they chatted away in the room, and one of the reps came out and said, "Look, your doctor will take you through the full story and what to do next in a couple of weeks' time. But the gist is, we've got two recommendations. One is to go to pathology and have your blood taken, which we're going to get you to do today anyway. Have your blood taken, and that will be put to the side, put on ice, or whatever they do to store it, to do genetic testing. The issue with genetic testing is it's very costly, it takes a long time, and also it could reveal things that aren't an issue, and freak people out. I was prone to being freaked out, Mark, so they had to be careful about all that.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I went, okay, all right. what's option B? And option B was to go off the risperidone that I was still on for 20 years. They said they saw a link between the diagnosis, dystonia, which traditionally does not have a cure. They saw a link between that and between me being on the risperidone for 20 years, and they recommend the way forward was to do that.
Wow, that must have been, hearing that news must have been pretty confronting because, I know when my psychiatrist said that he thought, I actually think you've been misdiagnosed with depression. You shouldn't be on all these antidepressants. I think you've got undiagnosed ADHD, and when you get a diagnosis and your doctor's sitting there saying, you know what, we actually think you need to get off these medications, and it can be a bit confronting at times, that because I suppose fear of the unknown, because you've been on this medication for so long, and like you said, it had been for all intents and purposes really doing the job.
Yep. Yep. I asked for an option C and there wasn't one, which I was bitterly disappointed by. But I said, look, you know what? Obviously, I went with going off the meds because I appreciate all you've said before about the place of medication, and yes, I was on them too long, but I was at that point where, look, I mean, if this is going to be any chance of restoring the leg, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
So I went off them, and as you could probably expect, mentally it was not good. Like everything came back except weirdly the depression. But instead of depressed,
Okay.
I became anxious times about four. Like that really sped up. In fact, I sped up. I talked faster, I kind of moved faster, and I got committed. I got out of bed and go, right, I'm gonna help my family. I'm gonna help my condition. I'm gonna save kids with cancer, a charity I was working with at the time. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I charged out the door every day. I did not take a single day off work, even though I clearly should have. I did every doctor's appointment I needed to. I just did everything. And I went out there and became hyper. And when I started moving quicker and talking quicker, it was a bit harder to do gigs then because I was too sped up. I was too highly anxious. But then after about maybe 6 months or a year, miraculously, the limp stopped.
Out of
My
the
leg just
blue.
worked again. Yeah, well, yeah, I out of luck. It got a little bit better, but pretty gradually, actually pretty obvious, sorry, pretty quickly it kind of did just stop. Like over a couple of weeks or two, it kind of got better, and all of a sudden it was gone. It was done.
Yeah, okay. Wow. And so, obviously you're under medical supervision this whole time while off the risperidone and all that sort of stuff. And so when that happened, were you given the agency to decide for yourself whether or not you were going to go back on it?
Uh, yes. I mean, it was really up to what I wanted to do, I guess. But I think what I never thought of going back on that. Though going back on the risperidone was never an option for
Yeah.
me, for the doctor. It was never discussed and was never wanted by me or by the family. But what was wanted at that time was the replacement medication.
Okay.
Now, the other kind of problem with this scenario, I mentioned it very briefly before, is that yeah, obviously OCD, repeated compulsion, and that is my movement, my tics and stuff. But OCD is also an intense fear of germs. Now, you don't want the return of intense fear of germs smack bang in the middle of COVID.
Oh my God. How
I would not
stressful.
advise that. I would not advise that at all. I mean, I think I probably put more sanitizer on myself during that time than is probably humanly possible. Like
So were
really,
you
it's
having to
really
go to
anxious.
work at this point, Dane? Were you having to go to work or were you able to work from home?
That was I think at the moment that at that time, I think that was work from home.
Yeah.
But also at that time too, I was living on my own. So when COVID started, I was with a really good friend. And then in that gap between the lockdowns, I moved into a place on my own. Obviously not knowing there'd be another spray of COVID. And then I moved into my place, that next spray hit, and then obviously it just escalated and got got worse from there. So yeah, so I just became even more paranoid about getting out, doing things, and I thought, look, if this has got me here, and if this, I don't want to go, I'd rather not go back to medication, but I had to try and find something.
Mm,
So I was on waiting list, and also because it was COVID, therapists and psychiatrists were in pretty high demand
mm,
during that time.
yeah.
So I couldn't see another specialist at least for 3 months. And
Okay.
this is 3 months after it started rearing its head that things really were not good. Because we left a little bit to see how the wean off went. Wean off was done very professionally, very carefully, very slowly. We left that, thought, leave me a bit, see how I went. I didn't go well. So I went to try and see somebody. I could not. So the GP put me in touch with just a therapist, a psychologist, to chat through stuff, which did help. It did work for a little bit, but not in the way I hoped it would. And then a gap came to see a psychiatrist. I went in and I said, look, I need something to ease me, but I do not want it to be antipsychotic. And I want it to be as light as possible, but still do the job because I think I only need a little bit just to get me through and get me back on track. So he recommended something to me. Well, first thing he said actually was, I see that your leg is good. There's great improvement there. And so I'm not going to do anything that's going to interrupt any progress you made with the leg, with the dystonia. My focus is just on the mind, right? And I said, great. You're the guy. Excellent. That's what I want to hear. Thank you. And it was a kind of much lighter med. It was a thing called Luvox. Now, like all meds that have symptoms,
Mm.
its main symptom was drowsiness and brain fog. Now, at that time, I
Drowsiness
was
and
working with a charity.
drowsiness and brain fog.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
And at that time, I was working with a charity and in charge of a number of million of dollars of income for that year, a big chunk of it with a couple of people helping me out. And it was not a time to be brain foggy and drowsy.
Mm.
Looking at like major data, numbers, spreadsheets, tight deadlines, which I was all pretty good at before, and I was escalating the position I was because of my prowess at my job and how well I was doing, and I did not want to jeopardize that because again, people pleasing, committed to the job, committed to others. So I got too out of my head. I fumbled. I just tanked at work, and I couldn't take it. So after about 3 or 4 months on that, I said no. I said, I cannot. I said, I'll stop this and I'm just going to go au natural. And I'll lean into all the natural therapies. And I made that decision 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, almost four now. I have not gone back on any single anxiety medication.
Wow.
And despite days when you think I want it back and it's a struggle, and many days are for many different reasons, I'm immensely happy and proud that I made that decision.
Mm.
Because yes, there's a place for medical support, and yes, I was on it way too long, but I just that stuff you have to be really, really careful with.
Mm.
Because like I believe that when it comes to the matters of the mind, yes, they're hard, and yes, you got to work through them, but there are more natural ways and more healing ways to do it. Because
Oh,
again, you've got
yeah.
to be around people, you've got to join communities, you've got to reach out. When you're in medication, it's easy to take the meds, sit in your room, watch TV, go in your own zone, and just be lonely and depressed for a long time and not break out of it. When you're forced to find other options, and you're forced to exercise and get out and walk more and join groups, or you're forced to connect with people, or you're even forced to go out and see a therapist or make visits to people, do anything you need to do for yourself to get yourself better, that's part of that journey. That's part of what keeps you going.
Mm.
If you take a med and think I'll be okay, I'll just withdraw, then that's not the way. And yeah, so I couldn't go back there. So now I just go to meditation, crystals, oils, diffusers,
Well, morning routine,
mindfulness, exercise, all that.
morning routine, I find is the biggest thing for me. That because I went, what is it, halfway through last year, so it's been nearly a year now that I've been off the ADHD medication. And that was pretty confronting because I'd been was my first time in 30 years without taking anything, 15 years on antidepressants and then 15 years on ADHD medication. And the big thing is, like, it's as daunting as what it is, and you think to yourself, what am I going to do? But I know for me, my big thing is the morning routine, having that morning routine where, whether it involves, movement, some type of movement, exercise, meditation, journaling, whatever it is, whatever works for you in that morning routine space, even if it's something half an hour or an hour before you start your day, it can really make a difference, like that to me is my pillar. I go, I've really got to work on doing this, and this before I start my day, because I know that if I don't do all of that stuff, my day is can be harder than what it needs to be.
Yeah, that's right. And some days you miss that. Like, it's important to keep that in play. But what I realize more than anything else is, set a schedule for yourself. But if you miss it, don't tear yourself apart.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
if you fail to do
life
something,
gets
or
in the
something
way.
doesn't.
Life gets
Life
in
gets in the way.
Yeah.
But also, too, let's be honest, you get in the way. Like, yourself gets in the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a disruptor and you can't commit to it, but you try. That gives you more motivation to do it the next day.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm still getting on top of, if I'm honest. That
Hey, while you were
routine.
going through all that stuff with your employer, were they aware of what you were going through while you were dealing with all of that stuff?
Yeah, they were aware, and they were good. Like, I have anyone who knows me is I'm pretty outward. I'll tell people things even if they don't really want to hear them. I'm pretty chatty. I'm pretty honest. And when I got that diagnosis of the were having to go off the meds, basically.
Yeah.
They knew I had the walk thing, and they saw the limp, and they knew all that, obviously. And I went around to each person. I went around to each of the 18 people there, and said, look, this is the deal. I'm going off this. It could be rough. Stick with me. Let me know. Be honest with me. Let's sit down. Whatever you need, let me know. And look, they were good. They were supportive. They were there. But at the end of the day, I think you get unhappy with yourself. And I think for me, it was just wanting to do better, but knowing that I wasn't. Particularly when I got the Luvox and got drowsy, that was the moment where it really started to crumble. I think up to that point, when I was going off the meds and I was like doing the doctor appointments and I was doing the stuff and going 100 miles an hour, I was still pretty okay. I was still reasonably kind of like doing my job, still okay. But then but ultra worried about, was I actually?
Right.
Because again, that's perception.
What's that self-stigma that self-stigma that you're putting on yourself?
Yeah. And like in kind of normal times when I wasn't in that situation, I was already hyper vigilant what people thought of me. But if I know I'm going off a 20-year medication, I know I'm having all this stuff coming back. I know I'm going to drop things and do things, and like I know things are going to be hard and weird. I was always worried about, am I okay? Am I okay in the eyes of am I okay in the eyes of other people? Is what I was thinking. I was not saying, am I okay in terms of myself?
Yeah.
And that's the real difference. That's the real difference between those whole two perspectives. And so I always second guess myself. But they were supportive. They encouraged. I asked them, and they said, look, honestly, you're fine. We know you're going through stuff, but honestly, you're fine. We're here for you. All good. And then it gets to a point where, I get to take off. I get to get on the drowsy meds, and I go, no, I just can't. I felt worse before. Now I'm feeling worse because even though my mind settled a bit, I'm now more worried about, my job and disappointing people and all that. So at the end of the day, it's your own head that does you in. And I think work did the best job they could to understand it, to go with it. Sometimes that's hard. If you're not in that position, that's hard. But that's one of the great things that work in the non-profit sector is they're pretty supportive because they need to be, and because that's what they're there for. Anyone who works for a charity or anyone who gives to a charity cannot be a bad person.
Yeah.
Like you're there to help.
You're there for the right reasons.
You're there for the right reasons. No one works at a charity just for the paycheck, because It's not really about like that's you're not always in big money with charity. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
No one does it for that. People do it because they a want a purpose.
Mm.
When I left uni, so in uni I did uni at UWS in Nepean, and I did a Bachelor of Arts, which is the degree you do when you don't know what the hell you want to do.
Yeah.
Let's be honest with
Pretty
that. All
much. Yeah.
right. And
Arts and
I majored
philosophy.
for like, sorry?
Arts and philosophy.
Exactly. Yeah, a degree in wankery is what it is.
Yeah.
And so you do that, and I did my major was a thing called cultural and textual studies. I still don't know to this day what that is, right? But I was more drawn to my sub major, which was communications, film, advertising, media, marketing, and all that. So I got through that, and then I got into starting to work, and I started to work with Vinnie's, amazing organization. Because I had the thought to myself, I said, if I want to do marketing and I like it, and I want to do communications and I want to write things to persuade people to do certain things, I'd rather do it for a good cause than sell another can of Coke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I just did that. And slight like detour if I can take one. When I was in uni, so I got the Bachelor of Arts, but I almost didn't get into it. So my TER, I think they called it at the time, my TER was at a level too low to get into the course I wanted to get into. And I had major issues with exams. I wasn't great with them. I was a very studious kid. I did all the study. I did all the assignments. And I literally got a letter from the principal to the university crediting my skill in classes, in assignments, and just the fact that exams are the points that let me down with nervousness and anxiety and all that stuff. And I got through to the degree at UWS, and I got nothing but distinctions and high distinctions.
Wow, that's cool.
That's not to brag, but it's also kind of is to brag. And as a result of that, I was given a free honours year to do whatever I wanted in the arts and media space. So I decided to write a feature film.
You
And I was
decided to
so
what?
excited to
Sorry.
write a feature film.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a term that not many people saw in my life either. And I was a massive fan of movies. And I just taught myself. I got all the scripts I liked. I got a script for like the Fight Club and The Matrix and all those things that were big at the time and revolutionary in film and for story writing. I got to that. I came up with an idea which I was hooked on. I thought it's going to work. I'll never give away the concept because it's mine for now. And one of these days I might make it to Hollywood. Probably not. But it was a psychological thriller, essentially, but a comic one, twist on media, kind of like a bit of a weird twist on the Truman Show, really, if you're going to kind of put it anyway. Anyway, I had the idea and I started writing it, and I did it all on my own. I didn't do any courses or whatever. I read scripts and I put together about, I think I did about 40 to 50,000 words. And I was towards the end of, I was halfway through that, sorry, when I decided I love writing a script, I love studying, I love doing all this, but I wanted to like go out in the real world and work for a bit and earn a living and start to move out have my own life. So I put a pause on the honours year halfway through just to go do that. And I did that. I came back and something happened, lapse in time. I don't know what happened, but basically, by the time I came back, red tape had said, "Nah, your break was too long, and you can't go back to doing the degree. So you can't finish your honours year that you've got for free."
Mm.
And I was devastated by that, but I thought, can I still do my script though? I said, yeah, it's your script, go for your life, still do it. And the last report I got from my advisor was that this is good, this has something. And I was able to see him a little bit after. He kind of said, yeah, I'll help you out. Had a look at it and it was all good. So I was paving away and I was writing got to about, up to 50,000 words. And I was working on it at home one day at my family computer in Penrith. And one day the computer crashed and I lost the entire thing.
Oh no. Oh no.
That's not a great day in the office.
I hate it when I've had situations where I've lost not that much work, but I've lost work from a computer crashing, and it's pretty devastating. Back up your stuff, peeps, is the advice.
Back up your stuff.
Back up your stuff.
Yep, that's it. And it was in that age where that wasn't the focus. Like it wasn't like computers were new, but it was like that wasn't that we were nowhere near advanced as we are today. And that just wasn't thought about as much.
Hey,
And like
so
I had my mum who's like my mum is like, if you lose something, if I lost something in the house, mum will go to the ends of the earth to find it. You know, one of those obsessive, like, I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna tear the place apart. She had to go at the computer, could not work it out. My uncle, who was a computer nerd, he couldn't work it out, and we just lost it.
yeah, right. Oh no.
Yeah,
Hey, so
yeah.
I'm curious in this mental health journey that you've been on personally. At what phase of this time frame were you running stand up comedy rooms?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. So that was, so I finished the room
Because the
kind of, and
laugh
I'll go and
laugh
describe
stand
what it
was around
was.
for a while, wasn't it? The laugh stand.
Yeah, yeah. So all this stuff happened. I guess it happened while I was on the meds because I kind of had the limp in when I was 40. And yeah, so it was around that time because I closed the room in 2018. So yeah, it was kind of close to that. It didn't affect the room or anything too much. I kind of wrapped most of that up before most of it hit. But yeah, so in 2012, well, actually, can I quickly tell about how I started comedy in the beginning?
Oh yeah, this for any, for anybody that knows anything about stand-up comedy and how you start out. So the general way to start is your first gig is usually 5 minutes, and
Yep.
you're in an open mic room, and you don't get given more than 5 minutes for a long period of time in your stand-up career. Like I know people that
Yeah.
have been doing 5 minute spots for years. But your first stand-up performance was how long was it, Dane?
So my first stand
40.
up came
How much?
about.
How long was it?
I'll
40.
just give a little bit of backstory to it before I make the reveal, which people don't. This is going to be big and weird, and you're right. This is going to be very weird.
It's
Um,
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I was working again at Vinnie's, which was in Lewisham, and I became mates with a guy called Andy. He was a musician. He was in some big bands in the 80s and 90s, and he was kind of like knew I had an interest in comedy. I'd been to the Melbourne Comedy Festival. I went to the Melbourne Festival 5 years in a row, and every year I would stay 8 or 9 nights and see 30 shows over that time,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Compulsive, like just committed to it because I love live comedy. So I did that, and after that, I kind of thought maybe I kind of want to give it a go. And Andy, we went for a beer at the Peterson Bolo across the road from work, and he was saying, "Look, are you still like, are you thinking about this comedy thing? Do you want to do it?" I said, "Look, I think so. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think I want to do it." So he went in to get some drinks, and he came back about 15 minutes later, which is way too long a time, particularly at the bowler. There was no one there, so you're not waiting a queue or whatever. That was a long time to get 2 beers. He came back, put the beers down on the table, and said, "Right, it's done. You and me here 6 weeks from now, Peterson Bolo, you do the comedy, I do the music, and we're off." And I said, "What now? Sorry, what? 6 weeks. I'm doing a gig here with you." "Yeah, we're doing it. We're holding a show. You're doing a gig." "Okay." So I took about like 5 or 6. Oh no, not that long. Took a couple of weeks off work, and I wrote like crazy. Right, I wrote like hell. I wrote,
Did
I
he
wrote,
tell
and I
you at
wrote.
did he tell you at that point how long you were expected to do on that night? Like did he tell you there and then that you're not doing a 5 minute spot?
No. Well, see, the thing is, Mark, what I knew. So I'll give away now. It was a split show, right? So whatever I did, whether he was going to do music, I was doing comedy, we'll have a break, he come back to music, I'll do a bit more comedy, right? So whatever I did was going to be more than 5 minutes. All right.
Mm.
There was no time thought about with it. It was just we were holding a show. So always going to be more. Now the smart person, while they're writing that thing, I've got to go on a stage with people. We're going to get family, friends, but we'll get like locals. There'll be a mix of people. I should go to a few open mics, jump up, try what I've written, see how it goes, and use that 6 weeks to hone it, to craft and have it fit for the stage. But when it got to the show, he did music, I got on stage, and I did 45 minutes straight
That's
of comedy.
crazy. I
Sorry,
find that
comedy, right?
inconceivable.
Yeah, that's one of the words for it, yes. And and I was shaking. I was nervous. I had never done anything like that at all. And I went straight in and did 45. And then we had a break, came back. He did another 15, 20 minutes of music. I come back and did another 30 of stand up.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
nuts. That is just
I'm not right.
absolutely, for the first time. So is there a reason why you didn't go and get up in open mic nights and try and work the material before this night, or it just
I'm guessing what,
that was it in
seriously.
hindsight thing, was it?
Oh, you know, 100%. It was the best thing I did. 100%. Because what it was is, like, we did that show, and that was primarily family and friends, right? But then we did a few other shows there. So we did it like a regular thing. Like, I can't remember, maybe every few weeks or something. And the other shows weren't family and friends, right? There is no trial by fire than doing that lot. And I kept doing those long sets too, by the way, right? I kept doing like 45 minutes and 30 in venues that A, don't know who the hell you are, B, aren't actually set up traditionally for comedy.
Mm.
And you're just there. We went across the road to do a note to take it from the bolo. We took it on the road, and on the road meant on the other side of the railway line in Petersham. And we did something there at one of the clubs at the Hunt Street Hotel, it was. We did over 3 or 4 shows there. So there is nothing that grows you and makes you stronger than performing in those type of clubs with bogans wanting to watch the TV, with the TV still on, by the way, playing the footy or whatever, going, go the doggies, while you're trying to do your set and do that. Like, you want trial by fire, 40 plus minute sets in those kind of pubs where you got to fight for every attention you get. That's trial by fire. But I was with a mate, we're having fun, we were enjoying it. And then after that, then of course, I would do the sensible thing I should have done, and I'd go and do the 5 minutes at the cops. But it was that trial by fire. And I mean, have you heard anyone with a story like that?
My God. Well,
As
no,
someone who wants to
that's
stand out, as someone who's kind of
yeah,
been their self.
that's just absolutely crazy. Like, even, man, that's such a long time. Like, when in comedy terms, like, and now, having run rooms and been around comedy for as long as you have been, you look back at it now and go, what was I thinking?
Oh, totally what was I thinking? It was an absolute crazy thing. It was one of the dumbest things I've done, but B, also one of the smartest and ballsiest things I've done.
Well, I want to know how you go from that to running, these successful comedy clubs that were quite successful.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, before I just want to tell you a little bit about the open mics. And when I went to do the open mics, we talked about before a club that I think a lot of comics in Sydney remember fondly is the Laugh Garage
Mm.
on Elizabeth Street in the city, run many, many years ago,
Yep,
by
by
a
our
guy called
friend
Darren
Darren
Sanders.
Sanders. Yep.
And he was amazing.
Darren.
Like, he opened, yeah, and he opened like open mic spots, and we got up and we did it all. And I would, at that stage, like, remembering now, I had to condense 45 minutes plus into like 5 minutes, right? And like work out what worked for five. And doing that was great. And I think one night I was there doing it, a famous Canadian comic was in the room. Do you know Stuart Francis?
No, no, no.
If you
The
don't know him,
name
go
doesn't
look
ring a
him up.
bell.
He's a one-liner comic, right? Very like Stephen Wright type one-liner comic, all right? And he was amazing. He's a really popular comic then and now. And he was in the audience. And at that time, I was kind of doing, they're all self-deprecating stuff. And it was all stories from my past where I'd done something stupid or something weird happened or whatever. And it worked. It worked for the longer club sets at the bolo and stuff. And it was kind of getting some traction in the room. He said, but why don't you like twist all that in its head instead of like do it like as a woe is me having a go at yourself? Why don't you be super proud of it? Why don't you think that's what makes you awesome? That's what makes you a hit with the ladies. That's what is your superpower. That's why you're so great. Flip it on its head. So I flipped it on its head. I took that to the next level. That was my persona. And that worked. It worked a lot of times. It also didn't work a number of times, and that ratio was different depending on the clubs I worked or whatever. And I would just go on that high bravado. I would get cocky. I would get confident. I'd kind of do a few like, innuendo jokes, and I'd kind of talk about me and how the ladies are loving it, blah, blah. And that got me a long way because it was infectious and people knew they could read me. They could read I'm not really an arrogant kind of whatever. Like they can read I'm not really serious. This is my character. I'm leading into it. And that got some really strong, good reactions. So that became my confidence. So when I was on the meds at this time before the whole twist happened with the dystonia, but you still needed a boost. You need a confidence lift. You need that something that tells you, oh, I've got the stage, I'm getting last, I'm doing pretty well. So that carried me through. And I did sets, and I never thought I would run a room. When I joined, there was no idea I'm going to run a room one day. I just got comfortable doing gigs. And I went to the King's Cross Hotel. I went to level 3, I think it was. There's a performance space that was there called FBI Social. So if you don't know it, FBI is a radio station, community radio station in Sydney, and they had a performance space there. I was there seeing, I think a couple of the Chaser guys were doing a spoken word interview thing with a political figure or somebody. You know how they do a chat that's a bit political, a bit serious, but also funny. They were doing that. I was sitting with my manager at work. We were just in beanbags, chilling out, watching a show, and I looked around. Thought, they're a pretty cool space. I wonder if they want to do some comedy. So I went up to the bar at the end and asked the lady there, I said, well, do you do any of this? Would you be keen? And they said, oh, we're not the people to talk to, but call Kimberly here, gave me the number at FBI. I'm sure she'd be keen on hearing something. I went, okay. Got in contact and I pitched the idea for the show, which at that idea, it was, again, I was going more with my theme. It was sexy comedy. It was comedy that wasn't so much the dark and dingy and like, some of mic rooms or others can be a bit, other than the light and everything on stage, comedy on stage can be a bit dingy and whatever. You're not sure about it in a pub or something. This was a bit of a classy venue. I wanted to do cocktails and drink specials and kind of make it a bit fancy and all that kind of stuff. So
was this the birth of the Laugh Stand? Like was that where it
This was the
started?
birth of the Laugh Stand.
Yeah.
But the twist is the first name for the show was not the Laugh Stand.
Sexy
The
comedy.
first name for the show.
Sexy
Sorry?
comedy. Was it sexy comedy?
No. Whatever you think is much, much, much worse.
What?
Much worse.
Okay. It is
Now, I
well,
mean, this is the thing. It actually
because
went
there's been some weird names for comedy shows over the years, man. What do you
I'm
got?
just going to straight hit it with you, all right? It's not a name. It's not PC. I called the show Laugh Your Tits Off.
Laugh your tits off. That's all right. That's all right. That's okay.
It's all right, but it's also
all right.
terrible.
No.
I mean, it was okay at the time. It got no negative reaction at the time. And I didn't change it because I got negative reaction per se. It just got on, and it was actually before it left FBI Social that I changed the brand to the Laugh Stand. So it became the Laugh Stand. I just like the pun nature of it, put the word laugh in there. They always say number one rule of comedy is always put comedy or laugh or something like that in the title so people know what they're geting.
That's a good name. The Laugh Stand, I think, is yeah. I always thought that was a great name. Yeah.
I mean, think about laughing, mic stand, Marcus genius when you really think about it.
Yeah, oh mate,
best name of all time. I didn't say
I
it.
can't believe that I was able, because many moons ago I had these grand visions of running my own comedy club at some point, and it's something that I'm not going to totally put out of the realms of possibility. But I did some Googling, searching, and I actually own all the domains, and I mean all of them, for the Laughter Bar.
Ah.
And I'm like,
okay.
How the hell was that even available? And as soon as I saw that was available, I'm like, man, I'm snaveling that up. So if I ever pull my finger out once, like if I, aside from all the other shit that I got going on, to run some comedy rooms, look out for the Laughter Bar.
Oh, well, do you still own those domains?
Yeah, shit, yeah. I always pay for them, mate. I'm not letting those suckers up.
Because I was going to say, if you didn't and you just said that, then you kind of spoiled it for yourself. But no, if you got domains, wrong with it, man. That's great. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did it at
Stand and
so
Deliver
I,
was
I
Stand and Deliver was
sorry.
another one that I liked that a couple of comedians up here in Queensland used for a while. And I thought that
Yeah,
was a good name for a comedy show, Stand and Deliver.
I like that. I like that. Been lots of good names along the round. I think there's like another really iconic one was a Mike in Hand,
Yeah, Mike in
which
Hand.
was that
Yep.
oh what was the name of in Glebe? It's mistaken me what the name
Happy
was, but a
Endings.
laughing hand.
I
Sorry.
think Happy Endings is a good name for a comedy show.
Well, that's a good name too. That is a good name. Yeah, there are lots of good names for the comedy clubs.
But you
So
got
the
you
laugh
built the
itself,
la
not really
you
one.
built it up, didn't you?
Sorry.
You built it up pretty well.
Yeah, so what happened was we ran it through 2 years. I think it was 2 years at FBI Social. And after the first name, I think maybe 8 months later, called it to The Last Stand. We ran it for, yeah, about 2 years. And then about in the second year, and I was running it monthly. So it was monthly, and we got about anywhere between, say, 30 and 60 to 80 people. Like it was pretty solid and consistent. There was only maybe 2 or 3 nights where we had like think I never cancel a show, but we were a couple of nights we were maybe like 20 or something. But most nights it was like anywhere between 30, 40 to 50. And it was going quite well, right? And had big names in, really big nights, so good. And halfway through that second year, I got a call from another promoter. And she's great. She ran rooms at the Oatley Hotel and the Manly Boat Shed. Julie Lawless, amazing promoter, really good.
Yeah,
She
no,
gave me a call and
Jules.
said,
Yeah,
"Look, Jules is great, right?"
yeah,
She gave me a call and said, "Look, I've taken on Harold Park, so I'm taking on Harold Park, trying to bring it back, and I just can't crack it." Now, Mark, you know about Harold Park, you know
mm,
his legacy.
yeah. Iconic.
Iconic. And like you know that in the 80s and 90s, it was the place to be in comedy. You had like
Before my time
almost
doing,
every night.
yeah, before my time doing stand up, but I do know that a lot of the, like,
Yeah.
you hear about the birth of stand up in Australia and that sort of stuff
Yeah.
when the guys like Rick Carter and, Rodney Root, all those guys that were going around, Peter Dean, all those guys were going
Oh,
around.
yeah.
That was
Tommy
the
Dean, you think of?
time. Oh, yeah. And that was the time, the Harold Park.
Yeah. Yeah, like Tommy Dean,
I
Peter
never got to
Burner.
perform there myself.
Ah, well. I say I'll bring it back just for you, but I never want to run a room again, so that's not happening.
Yeah.
But having said that, so yeah, iconic time, right? So every I won't list the names because almost any Australian comic you know today who's been around since those times gigged at Harold Park, and that's
Yeah.
how they started.
Yeah.
They started there. So I said yes to taking the gig. And I finished up at FBI. I think I overlapped with them a little bit. I did both at the one time, but I was kind of getting over the FBI one. The numbers were slowing a bit. It was getting a little bit hard to get people in the room because you're in a big hotel, and I don't know if you know the King's Cross Hotel, but it's got many floors other than the floor the good room is on, and those many floors are for with people just drinking and eating, and you go down with a flyer. Do you want to come up and watch some comedy? No, thank you. We're on our third beer. We've got a palmy in front of us. We're good. We're done. We won't join you, but thank you very much. So it was fine. It worked well, but I thought, no, my time there is done. And then I just stopped there and I went full time, at least on the comedy side, with Harold Park. And we did it about monthly for a little bit. We got same kind of like 40 to 50 to 60 people. And then it was going well, so I switched to the weekly.
Mm.
We ran it weekly for, well, 3.5 years. So yeah, it was probably 4 years we ran it, and 3.5 of those were weekly. And consistent numbers, names through the door, big names, all yeah, it was great, but it ran me to the ground, if I'm being honest.
Mm.
You know what it's like when you spend your life gigging, or when you run a room as well. You're either at a room to do a gig, or you're at a room to run a gig, and you're around beer, you're around burgers, you're around steak, around palmies, and you can't help but just have that while you're there, and that's not healthy. Even if you do it 2 or 3 days, nights a week, that's not healthy. Or even one night a week isn't that healthy.
Mm.
So it ran me to the ground, but I had some amazing experiences, and I will never ever take that time. I met some legends, gigged with people like Tony Martin from the Late Show and D Generation. That was a pinch me moment, man. Both Merrick Watts and Tim Ross separately, they had split radio by then. And Tom Balla, Tommy Dean, Jackie Loeb, Julia Wilson,
I'm actually
all these
working.
amazing people.
I'm actually working
Sorry?
with. I'm actually working with Jackie this weekend. This
Amazing,
weekend coming
amazing.
up, yeah. Where and it's the first time Jackie and I have worked together in probably the best part of, I don't know, man, have to be 10 years, and we would have been working on
Amazing.
a cruise ship somewhere together, I reckon. So we've got a couple of gigs coming up this weekend. I'm so excited to see her and catch up.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that came through. I was even looking at old photos the other day, and someone I booked who's wasn't that big then became bigger, but Melanie Bracewell, who's
Oh,
on the cheap
really?
seats,
Okay,
and
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I was going through photos, I bought Mel. And it was at the time when she was up and coming. I don't know if she was supporting, because I always paid feature supports, MCs and the headliners. And the feature support would do 10 minutes, and then obviously MC do the total about 15 to 20, and the headline spots were about 30 something. And I always paid both headline and MC equally, the same,
Yeah. Oh,
because I
look,
thought
mate,
that's,
I have been campaigning for that for so long up
yeah,
here because, and it's what I try and explain to people that don't know, and I'm so glad to hear that from you, because for those that don't know, the difference between usually, generally, a lot of the time, the MC doesn't get paid as much as the headline act, and yet the
yeah,
interesting thing about it is that. I know a ton of fantastic comedians, right? But that doesn't mean that they're all good MCs. Being a
mm,
good MC is a specialist craft. When I was very first started out, Mike Van Acker, one of my comedy mentors when I first started, gave me some great advice. He said, mate, get good at MCing and you'll never be able to work a day in your life. And he was right, because now
yeah,
I MC all sorts of stuff, multi-day conferences and all that. But the difference for a comedy night is when you walk out onto stage as the headline act, you're walking out to an audience, and that audience has been created by the MC, because when the
yeah,
MC walks out, they're not an audience. They're 200 strangers sitting in one room going, what's happening? And it's the MC's job to mold them into a comedy audience. And that is a
yeah,
craft. It is a skill. Not all comics are great at it. I pride myself on being a good MC, but if I haven't run too many gigs myself, but whenever I have put on a show, I'm the same. I always try and make sure that, where possible, the MC's got to be paid the same amount as the headline act, man.
totally. Yeah, totally. So that was the way I ran it. And again, yeah, we got about anywhere between 30 to 60-ish people. So it's pretty consistent run through. And then you probably know what I'm about to talk about next. The golden goose, I guess, that comes up from running a show, a moment that I will never forget the rest of my life.
Are you talking
I
about
was
that?
yes. So I think maybe halfway through, maybe year 2 or 3 of it. I was running through it. I got a call one night from a guy called Cam Medlaw. And he introduced himself. I said, I'm Cam, and I'm currently managing. I've just been in Canberra with the Doug Anthony All Stars, at which point I think I seized up when I heard that name because they're iconic. And he said, I'll be working with the Dogs. They've done a reunion show in Canberra, launching a DVD, I think it was. I think it was a DVD of Das Kapital or something like that. They were doing some launch. They'd been gone for a number of, like 10 years maybe. They hadn't been together for about 10 or more years. They came back on the stage to do a few songs for the launch. Obviously, fans went nuts. They had a lot of fun. They walked off stage and said, we love this. We want to do more of this. We want to go back on the road. Now, if you don't know, the Doug Anthony All-Stars were comprised of Paul McDermott, who you know back in the day from Good News Week, you still know around, amazing voice, amazing musician, amazing comedian.
Yeah.
Tim Ferguson, well known for the Dogs, but also TV shows. Don't forget your toothbrush. He was Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror Picture Show, the live stage production, and Richard Fidler, who was an amazing part of the group. And Richard Fidler was kind of like the quiet man, the man to the side, while Paul and Tim did their riffing. And so they all came back and they all did the
And
gig.
Flacco.
And so Flacco as well. Now Flacco and the Sandman is listed in that Das universe, but to the side. And
Yeah.
sometimes Flacco, who could play guitar, would play a bit with it. Anyway, they were doing this gig, the Dogs themselves, the three Dogs, and they said, "We love it. We want to do more." Richard said, "Look, that was a lot of fun, but I want to keep doing conversations on NBC. That's my thing. I like that now." It's the opposite to what he was. It's not comedy in itself, but it's an amazing program. He's a very good interviewer,
Oh,
as are you,
brilliant.
Mark.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. He's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Richard Fidler's
Yeah.
awesome.
So he wanted to go back and do that, which is fine. So, but Cam said, but we've got Paul Livingston, who was Flacco, Flacco and the Sandman. If you don't know it, Google it, look it up. Flacco was a bald-headed guy. He had a little squiggle on his head. Did really surreal, like poetry and like comedy that was just off the wall and like different, but very, very funny. And partnered with another very funny character called the Sandman. They were on Triple J. They had a lot of stage success. They worked with those boys a lot on different things, shows and stuff. Anyway, so they got Livo in to do Richard Fidler's role. So they said, we now want to actually come to the Harold Park. Will you host some trial shows for our reunion of the Doug Anthony All-Stars? Acclaimed throughout Australia, acclaimed throughout the UK in particular. They were the anarchists of comedy. You know, they were political, they were perverse, they were severe, they were sweary, they were vulgar, they were just like, there was something that would entertain a crowd into a rapture and often start a riot. It's like almost that old school Blues Brothers chicken wire, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
And
they
did
were
have
in
things
their
wrong.
day. In their day, they were iconic. There wouldn't be too many people in Australia that wouldn't know the Doug Anthony All Stars.
They were the epitome of the rock and roll of comedy.
Yeah.
You know, you probably wouldn't have like a Jack Black, Tenacious D. You probably would have all that stuff necessarily if it wasn't for some big and ballsy guys like them doing it. And so they wanted to come back and do a reunion tour. Now, in that time that had passed, and it's public info, so I'm not disclosing anything people don't know, but Tim Ferguson got diagnosed with MS very early in the game. I can't remember the age, but it was while he was touring with the original Dogs. And it was part of the reason for them disbanding because he just found it a little more trickier, but still maintained, still was out there, still was happy, positive, and involved, but he got more and more affected by the MS. So he was now, he wasn't wheelchair bound, but during the shows he would come up in a wheelchair because that was the best way to be on stage for that period of time. So they said, we want to come to Harold Park, we want to do some reunion shows, but we need your help getting the stage fitted with a ramp, arranging all that, making sure the venue had their elevator up, all working, and sort it all out. Is that something you would like to do? And I said, F yes, let's go. And I put that show on sale, and probably within about an hour, the 150 tickets were sold. Done.
Yeah.
So fast as I've ever sold anything.
Yeah.
And 150 people crammed into that room. Keep in mind, our biggest audience before that was probably about 100. We did some fundraiser gigs. We had some other real big names in. So we did well, but 100 seated, 150 we couldn't seat. So we had a mix of seating and standing. And I went to do, so the deal was, they said, you can support us. You can open for us. Skips a beat, obviously. I go, okay, cool. All right, okay. And I turn up on the day of the first show. We planned, I think we were doing about 3 shows, like because there were numbers being sold, so they wanted to do more than one, do about 2 or 3. I turned up for a sound check at about 10 or 11 a.m. Now, this is a comedy room. I'd never turn up for a sound check for anything like that in my life at like 10 or
Yeah,
11
that's
a.m. for a
right.
gig that's at like 8. You know, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But while they were doing that, and while we were hanging out, and by the way, while I was hanging out with the Doug Anthony All Stars, setting up to produce a gig that I was opening for, Flacco, so Paul Livingston, came up to me and said, "Look, it's been a slight change of plans. You're still going to open, but instead of bringing the Dogs on, you're going to bring me on as Flacco." Now, that character had not been seen for probably longer, maybe, than the Dogs had been seen.
Yeah,
And
wow.
no one had any idea that he was going to make an appearance as that character. So I got on stage, did my five, did well, friendly, warm crowd, great, really cool set, had a lot of fun. And then I said, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're here for the Doug Anthony All Stars, and I'm so excited. But we've got something extra. I only found out today I'm about to bring to the stage someone you have not seen for longer than the Doves. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Flacco."
Oh, I bet
And
the
Mark,
audience
that
erupted.
that room boomed
Oh,
harder than
man.
any room. And that's, I get like goosebumps thinking about that moment. All right.
Yeah, I
It's
bet.
that whole blow the roof off analogy. The roof was gone.
Yeah.
Repairmen had to come the next day. They had to rebuild because that just went off. And then that show went for either an hour and a half or 4 hours. I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah.
They just ripped the shit out of it. Everyone was in raptures, loved it, and then we came back and did it twice again after that. Then they went off and did some smaller kind of like starting up gigs in wherever they went, and then came back, did a few refreshers with me, like one or two. So in total it was about 4 or 5 shows I did with them. I think each one of them, I think Flacco came on after I did my bit and same kind of deal. And Mark, it was just absolutely incredible because you grow up with guys like that. Like I watched them on the big
Oh,
gig,
yeah. They're
and through
idols.
the radio, I heard them. They're just
They're,
phenomenal.
yeah, they're idols. They're idols. And so obviously you're not running the rooms anymore, but are you still treading the boards? You're still jumping up on stage, popping up doing gigs here and there?
I am, and I think because I took quite a time off from doing much. Now I never went away completely. After shutting the room down the last stand, 2018, I still gigged. Like I still went out. Maybe I went from like 3 or so gigs a week to maybe like 3 or so gigs a month. I also got burnt out by comedy, not physically. Well, physically burnt out. I gained weight. I was stressed. All these things, but I also kind of like fell out of love with it for a little bit. When you're
Mm.
working it for a while and it's based on numbers, and it wasn't something I could make a living off. So I had to concede to myself, this isn't working as anything sustainable for me. I have to get myself better. I have to go back and get my health and fitness back, and I have to start earning real money to live out of home. So I had to go and do that, and I stood back a little bit, but I still always had my foot in. I always did gigs every now and then, and there were a couple of good stretches I had where I found the right promoter, and they put me on many gigs, and good. But then when I went off the medication and the whole dystonia thing hit, and I hit that hyper. I spoke too quickly. I've got a lisp in case you haven't noticed. And when you speak quickly and you got a lisp, that makes it hard to understand. That's
Right.
something I still struggle with. I still try and maintain my pace and I still try and be clear. But when those two don't align, then that makes it difficult. So I wasn't getting booked. And like I said, that act I had, that hyper cocky, overtly kind of like overtly sexual in a way with the innuendo, worked great a lot of times, but then didn't at others. And
Mm.
then that combined kind of just like it took a turn from me, and I think I just got less and less booked. And then the industry changed
Mm.
because I was out of the loop. I wasn't the go-to. I wasn't the go-to for someone wanted to start a room, call Dane, find out how to do it, how to book acts, who the agents are, who the good rooms to go to are, who the good comics to book for your rooms are. Like when you're running a room, you're a center of everything. You get so many calls, so many Facebook messages, so many emails saying either, can I have a gig or can you help me with a room? Can you run a charity night? Do this, do this, do that. And you're center of it. I knew everybody, I knew all the contacts, I got all the people, and I filled the rooms. But then when that stops and the new iteration of promoters and everything comes in, and you get hit by COVID and you get hit by cost of living, the industry changed. And we're now a lot of predominantly open mic rooms with more comics than there are paid gigs, and there are less feature headline spots now, less 30, 40 minutes,
It's
more
exactly
showcase
the same
style.
up here, mate. It's exactly the
Yeah.
same up here. It's exactly the same. It's a lot of, a lot of rooms opening up from guys that can't get pro work in the mainstream comedy clubs and stuff. So they go, well, I'll just go and find my own, and they start up open mic gigs in pubs and sports bars and left, right, and centre. And I got to tell you, Southeast Queensland at the moment's got a comedy scene where I reckon you could pretty much find a gig on stage 7 nights a week up here at the moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I
like
mean,
I'm not
I don't
saying
know if
I'm not saying that they're all going to be great gigs, right? But you
no.
could
Well,
you could find yourself in a spot under a spotlight with a microphone.
yeah, that's my thing, and it was not. It's always been the case. Is the only issue I've had is those with open mic rooms that don't sell themselves as open mic rooms, and they charge a price that probably isn't applicable
Yeah, I
for an
find that
open mic
annoying.
room.
I do find that
Because
annoying
you go
because the
because that
punters.
ruins the reputation of what live comedy is.
Well, that's right, and because the punters don't understand the difference between an amateur night and a professional night, and I'm
Yeah,
forever, if it's an open mic night, charge it. Advertise it as an open mic night, and let the punters know. These are amateurs. I've constantly seen advertising where they go, great lineup of Southeast Queensland's funniest acts. And you look at the lineup and I go, they're all open mics. None of them are pro comics, and
yep,
then the audience go to that and then it might not be the greatest show. And then they go, oh, if this is comedy, fuck this, comedy shit. Why would I go and pay $35 for a ticket? And then,
yep,
you're there going, well, that's the difference between watching an amateur show and watching a pro show. A pro show's all professional, full-time professional comics,
yep,
and
yep.
it's something that, we still battle with that, mate. We still battle with that. Don't start me because
I
I
mean,
tell
I
you
see. So I
what,
don't know if you see the same at your end, but I see a turn a little bit. Like there's a little bit of a turn for like promoters who kind of know how to do it a bit better. They introduce more pay. They find ways to pay people, and make sure they do deals with the pub to see that people are paid. But it's not of the value as back in the day where you could pay a full headliner to do 40 minutes, or you can even get someone interstate these days. Like getting someone interstate to Sydney is harder unless they're here for a festival, in which case they're selling in their own show, so they're not going to really go to plug your tickets or whatever to get people in the room.
mm,
It's just harder, and I guess the only reason I'm saying that is that for me, for someone from back in the day who wasn't the person I was, didn't have the reputation I had, and was someone who was still struggling with mental stuff and still talking quick and all that stuff. You've got so many open micers and comics that just want stage time that there's more comics than rooms. So then
mm.
rooms open up for those comics, but then they don't have the money to get a big name in or do whatever. So the market was just saturated with people wanting to do it. And I had a chat with a comic once who ran a room who I knew in the day, and I said, "Why aren't you booking me? You like me and you like what I did." He said, "Yeah, I do, but like you've had your shot at that. Like you've run your room, you've done all that. We've got new voices on the scene. There's limited time here, and I just want to give new voices like you or I a chance to jump up, do their thing, and have their moments." And I thought, you know what? That's fair enough,
Yeah, well,
and that
that's
makes
right.
sense.
And that's the thing is, like I don't begrudge not doing any of those gigs because I look at it and I go, I give those gigs to the guys that were where I was 25 years ago. When you're
Yeah,
in a position where you'll take absolute, and you know what, as hard as what those gigs are, they build character, like you learn from the gigs. I had David Smead on recently and we were talking about the
yeah,
fact that, and, Danny McGinn, like you learn from the gigs that you struggle at, and you go,
yeah,
how do I rectify that? When you're on stage and you're caning it and lifting the roof off the joint, you walk off and you're all like, how amazing am I going? But,
yeah.
you really do learn from the ones where you struggle. And I think so it's a double-edged sword, as much as it frustrates me that they don't advertise them as open mic gigs. I am encouraged by the fact that the comedy industry is so vibrant is I suppose one way to put it in relation to there being so many options for people starting out in the industry to go and do gigs. Now, like I said, they're not all going to be great gigs. You're going to be in sports cars. You're going to be in bloody beer gardens, wherever it is. But it's a time to walk on stage and peddle your wares, you know, which is how you get good at it.
Yeah. And you're right, it tests you as well too, and that's what that trial by fire of the quite unconventional start I had in comedy. That was part of that. But can I tell you two kind of like tricky gig stories? So you mentioned Smeety just said Dave Smeet, and I mentioned before the Mike in Hand, which was at obviously the Friend in Hand Hotel. Don't know why I didn't remember the name. I did a gig there once, and I turned up to just do a spot. Smeety was the headlining. Was MC, and we had a really great headliner on. I got there, and the manager of the room said, "Oh, Dane, the headliner can't make it, so now we're going to switch, and Smeety's going to headline. Can you MC?" And this was around the stage where some of that interference started to happen. I wasn't feeling 100% great, and I was at a workplace, so like a charity, they were great, and the boss for the first time was coming to that gig with a mate of his, right? And I was just rocking up to do 5 or 10, hadn't done a gig for a bit. I'd closed the last stand, I was moving on, but I thought, you know, great, fine, I'll do it. Got on, had so much fun, time in my life, did well, everyone was happy with it, was fine, right? In the break, at the Friend in Hand, every time they did it, they normally had like Morris dancers downstairs. They had a gig somewhere else. They'll come and hang out the front. And the promoter was having a chat with them and said, "Hey, at the start of the second half, do you want to come up and do some Morris dancing on stage to open the second half?" Now, you know where this is heading, Mark, because one thing that doesn't mix, particularly on the fly with comedy, is any other art form.
That's right.
Any other live art form that you're not ready for.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So the promoter said, "Hey, just go on the mic and say, yeah, we're back for the second half. Great show. Firstly, Morris dancers, right?" And seriously, about 9 to 10 Morris dancers, like Irish dancers essentially, jumped on stage, tiny stage, did their thing, and then got off, and I had to reset the room. And it did. They were a lovely room. They were supportive. I did tell my boss to shut the F up during the show. Thankfully, he was a footballer with a good sense of humour, so he kind of took it, and it was all fine. So risky there. But then Morris dancers came on. I brought the show back, and then it was a great night. But like, I did not expect, after not doing a full gig for about maybe like a month, and kind of being a bit sore and sorry for myself from the running the room and feeling not great, to do that. But once I got on stage, and once I got the room, and once I could riff and create laughter and joy, and then obviously have some great acts on as well too, it was just so much fun. But you get rooms like that. You just have to go with it, be in the moment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know if you remember.
You've really highlighted the fact that, you know, I'm constantly saying to people that as much as you get a benefit from laughing, making someone else laugh in actual fact gives you a bigger psychological hit. And, you know, like you said, you hadn't done it for a while, you're out of practice, you're only there to do a 5-10 minute spot, and you go, yep, okay, no worries. And then you get thrown in the deep end. And once you're up there, you know, because that's the thing is once you start getting them laughing and you start to get those endorphins going, man, it's a rush.
Yeah. And it's engagement too, because you just said it with the MC, right? MC's job is to run the room, is to control the room, is to keep them on board, keep them happy, not necessarily be the funniest person in the room, but the room that they could trust you and lead. And that's engagement. Like, you're getting laughs, yes, but mindfulness is, in that job, you got two jobs. You got not just a laugh and applause, you've got to keep them happy, keep them controlled, settle them down, reset if an act doesn't go great or something happens, or if you have Morris dancers open the second half, do something to reset the audience.
It's a selfless role for the show, you know, you know, my mate Mike Van Acker compares the MC to the opening batsman in a cricket team. You know, you got to see off the new ball, you got to hit the occasional band, but you're not the guy that goes out and scores 100. You know, that's for the headline act, and And
You've used a sport analogy there, so you've lost me a little bit, but I get what you mean.
right, oh, well, people that listen follow the cricket will know what I'm talking about. So, hey, listen, mate.
I do know that, bro.
I want to wind this up shortly, but before
Yeah.
we do, right, we like to finish first. Actually, before we finish, I just want to ask you, what's happening now? Like, have you got any? Have you got any, irons in any comedy fires that you're doing a
Yeah.
gig or you're promoting a gig, or is there anything in the comedy realm that's happening right now?
Yeah, so I decided with all this stuff, like when I started to come back to performing, I didn't want to come back to traditional club performing, and it's also because I wasn't really getting the gigs at the time, and it just wasn't the same for me anymore, or the audience. I want to come back and, like I said, connect, get that mindfulness back, and engage a room. So I started doing more storytelling nights. I started playing around with other stuff, and then a year ago, actually, I did my uh, brand new show that was all about the journey that I've talked about. There's a lot that I said here that's not covered in the show, so don't worry about hearing the same stuff or whatever. It was telling the story of the diagnosis and the limp and how it's all affected me, and just that embracing the real you and the real, true, authentic self. And I decided to call the show "Excuse Me, Your Authentic Self is Showing."
Which I think is a great title, by the way.
Because I'm the master of puns, as you
Yeah,
know, for everything from laugh your tits off to the laugh stand to excuse me, your authentic self is showing, that is supreme. All right.
yeah,
So
I do like
come
that.
just for that. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's a storytelling show. So it is about that. And again, it's about that equal parts engagement, but that equal parts laughter. So it's funny. But when I debuted it at the Sydney Fringe Festival last year, Tim Ferguson came to that too, by the way, which is amazing. And Flacco came to my opening troll show I did at the Bolo a few months before that. When I did that and it went well, at the end of the show, the ideal compliments I got continuously was that was really funny. And what you said about being in your 20s versus your 40s and mental health, you nailed perfectly. Or what you said about this, or connection, or the true self, or people pleasing. I got that completely. So I found the message got through and landed, and the jokes got through and landed. And for me, that's more meaningful than anything else. And you know, Mark, running this laughter clinic and the amazing job you've done, I read about you all the time in the work, is that impact how we can entertain and warm up a crowd and keep them happy, keep them laughing. But then you can also delve into mental health, which is a real crisis now. It's getting worse than it has before.
yeah,
And addressing that, sharing your story, sharing your passion, and doing that with some jokes tossed in. It's true, authentic, it's real. And yeah, so I decided to do that, but work on the craft, work on the presenting, work on the jokes and the stories, so I can then use that to pivot to keynote speaking and emceeing. And I want to travel the world and talk about, comedy and mental health and disability and, authenticity and living outside the norm and, taking big swings like doing 45 minutes for your first gig, or touring the dugout at the All Stars and in a little tour, doing ads and throwing yourself out there, doing a whole lot of stuff, and doors are opens for you along the way. I'm not doing self-help because I'm still not great. I'm
yeah,
not saying be like me. It's just like listen to me, talk with me, and let's laugh together, have fun together. And the only way we heal, the only way we get anywhere in life is by connecting. So that's the aim. Just go to shows, come to shows, watch, talk, jump up on stage, join meditation groups, go on retreats. I found out they're not cults. I
yeah,
went on my first one, I didn't die. We didn't have to sacrifice a single goat. We didn't do it. Was all good. It was normal. They're good, normal people. They want to heal, connect. And there's no truer bond than people who are strangers, but they're in the same room for some form of connection.
yeah.
That's just a simple dialogue. There's no bias, no background, nothing to judge you on, which I was always worried about, but just to connect with you authentically. And yeah, so that's my aim. I'm still
Yeah,
working for
cool.
non-profit. I'm with a great non-profit now, working with programs for people who are blind, low vision, or hearing and low hearing. Sorry, deaf and low hearing. And it's amazing. It's a great place, great cause, nurturing some donors to do some great things. But yeah, connections, jumping on stage, entertaining, engaging. That's my focus.
Nice. Nice, I love it. Okay, so if people want to follow the Dane Hiser Roadshow, where should I send them? If I put a link in the show
Yep,
notes, is it
that would be great. Thank
what
you.
socials
If you
here?
send it to Dane Hiser Comedy on Facebook. I do have a gig coming up, so go there. It's on the 17th of September at a bowling club, actually, but at the Ashfield Bowling Club. A great comedian called Mark Williamson, who ran Comedy on the Edge, a really big brand back in the day, is coming back and he's done some great stuff at Ashfield Bolo. He's putting on a festival called Jeff, the Comedy Festival, in honor of his dad. He
Yeah.
did the first one of those last year, and I'm doing the show, Excuse Me, Your Authentic Self is showing as part of that festival on the Saturday 17th. There'll be others announced soon. I'm going to find weird places to do gigs. I'll go to bookshops, I'll go to meditation centers, I'll go anywhere out where there's an inbuilt audience. There's someone there who wants to get a group together, listen, heal, laugh, connect, and all that. So I'll be doing that. Check Dane Heiser Comedy, but there'll be more. I'm looking at launching a site where I'll be doing some written stuff, stories and things, and there'll be a hub. But for now, go to Dane Heiser Comedy on
Okay, and
Facebook.
that's Facebook or LinkedIn?
That's on Facebook or Meta.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. No worries.
Yep.
All right. So
I'm also on
now we're
Instagram
going
and
to
all that
finish.
too. I saw.
Sorry.
I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn and all that too. You can put whatever links you want up there too.
I'll find
You
them.
can find
I'll
me there.
find them. So
And I won't be quiet. I'll get back to you. Don't worry. I'll talk your ear off.
yeah, no. Worries. So, mate, we like to wind up with, and before we wind up with the Feel Good Five, thank you so much for being so giving of your time, and I really appreciate your openness with talking about everything that you've been through and your family has been through, and I really do appreciate your openness with all of that, and I hope that our listeners have got something out of it. I really do.
I
Okay.
will just say with that, I've learned for the first time with all that stuff to be grateful.
Oh, well,
I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had. I'm grateful for the support, for the family, for Trent, and for getting the gigs and the life and the people I work with. You got to turn around from I'm not getting enough to I'm lucky for what I have and I'm going to do more with it.
yeah. Well, you've actually just answered one of the Feel Good Five questions there. So we finished with the Feel Good Five, right? So
Yes.
number one, what makes you happy?
Live comedy.
Awesome, of course. Yeah, right. Doing it as well as watching it.
Yes.
What are you
Yes.
grateful for?
Family experience,
Yeah.
living with a brother that's different, and just opening doors, taking big swings, and having doors open.
Yeah, awesome. Number three on the list, mate, is what are you looking forward to? I dare say it's your upcoming shows, but it might be something else. You got stuff other than that you're looking forward to?
I am actually I'm a concert goer myself, so I've booked one ticket to Robbie Williams in November
Oh,
at a
oh,
core
you,
stadium, I think.
you're gonna
I look forward to that.
love it. Yeah,
Yep, and I've also got a ticket to Greg Davies, the legend from Taskmaster, the OG from the UK, at the ICC in November as well too. So I love live gigs still, be it comedy or music or whatever. So they're just a couple of things just on the non doing comedy or doing whatever stuff. Looking forward to that. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Okay, number four on the list is what's your me time when you want to switch off from the world and recenter and recalibrate? What are you doing?
Yeah. Action movies. I'm a big fan of the Bruce Willis, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Stallone, the
Oh, the old
Nicolas
school
Cage. A
stuff,
massive
old
fan of
school.
him. Yeah, sitting back. I like. I'll keep this short because I know I talk a bit. 80s and 90s action movies, particularly 80s, are the OG. Love
Yeah.
it, love all that stuff. So nothing. Die Hard's my favorite, and Point Break. Very weirdly, that's my all-time favorite film.
Love Point
Originals, of
Break.
course, all the originals.
What did you
Point
think?
Break.
What did you think of the remake of Point Break?
It was a terrible, terrible sequel,
Yeah,
or remake, but it showed some great action adventure footage. Like
yeah.
from,
I
if
tell
it was
you,
something else,
I tell you what, the Patrick Swayze movie that they did remake well was Roadhouse.
I agree with that. I liked the remake of that. I thought that was good too. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought.
Generally, don't go near it, but that did work.
Yeah. I think they did a pretty good job of Roadhouse. Jake Gyllenhaal,
Yeah.
cracking effort. And mate, the last thing on the list is, what has made you laugh recently?
Actually, I'll tell you, it's relating to the last question, the movies. So because I love old school movies, I go to retro screenings. And 2 weeks ago, I went to a retro screening of Face Off. Do you remember that film?
The
Nicolas Cage,
Nicolas
John
Cage,
Travolta.
John Travolta movie.
Yep. Where they literally swap faces to like, if you want to catch the enemy, you have to become him, right?
Yeah.
Absolute batshit crazy plot. But what was so fun was being in a full audience for that and laughing all the way through. That film did not take itself seriously. It was bombastic, over the top. I love Nicolas Cage. Travolta did an amazing job. But hearing the audience laugh with that was probably the funniest experience, and the most I've laughed and smiled. And that was only a few days after Trent passed. So it was a release I needed, and that was just pure fun. Seeing
Wow.
people indulge in all the little like garish and corny bits from that movie and just loving it. That was pure joy.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's not really billed as a comedy though, but I know what you're saying.
They play it serious, but they know they've got a batshit crazy premise. They know what they're selling. It's John Woo, it's dubs, it's slow-mo, it's triple guns. It's just let's go nuts. And those two performing at the height of their game, trying to beat each other and just, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss, that film. Nothing better.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, awesome. Dane, thank you so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate everything that you've brought to the conversation and your love of comedy and your dedication to running the rooms and all of that sort of gear and your support of the industry and the mental health side of it. And I think I wish you and your family all the very best, mate, as you navigate what is going to be the new normal, for you guys now.
Yeah.
And that's going to take time, but I'm sure, you're obviously a close family unit. And so I really do wish you guys all the best, mate. So thank you so much for you.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So, and that's it, my friends. No matter where it is that you are listening around the world, as always, very appreciative of your time in tuning in. And if you haven't already done so, hit the follow button, subscribe, all that jazz, leave a comment or share one of the episodes. Look through the archives. We've got some interesting episodes there. And yeah, as always, my friends, please be kind to yourself and be kind to those around you. And we will talk to you next time. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. The information contained in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended, nor should it ever replace, advice received from a physician or mental health professional. Want more info? Visit thelaughterclinic.com.au. If you enjoyed the episode, please share and subscribe. Thanks again for listening to The Laughter Clinic Podcast with your host, Mark McConville.